The national debt recently reached $21.3 trillion. There's a debt clock in New York that is running at an extraordinarily rapid rate. The American people pay for that debt with interest. Last year, the government paid $371 billion in net interest. Without serious reforms in just 10 years, debt held by the public will increase by more than 80%, and net interest will nearly triple. This is unsustainable and unacceptable. We need to get the nation's fiscal house in order. Congress has both the authority and the responsibility to do so. Article 1 of the Constitution vests Congress with the power of the purse. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 7 says no money shall be drawn from the Treasury, but in consequence of appropriations made by law and a regular statement and account of the receipts and expenditures of all public money shall be published from time to time. I would argue that we have not been faithful to at least Article 1, Section 9, Clause 7 of the Constitution. Generally, Congress exercises its fiscal authority to determine and oversee federal spending through the annual appropriations process. However, over time, more and more spending has been put on autopilot. The Government Accountability Office calls this backdoor spending. Backdoor spending is federal agency spending not subject to congressional review in the annual appropriations process. Remember what Article 1, Section 9, Clause 7 says, that there will be a regular statement account of the receipts and expenditures of all public money. Today, the GAO issued a new report on the scope and frequency of backdoor spending. According to the GAO, backdoor spending has increased by 88% since 1994. Federal agencies reported $3.2 trillion in backdoor spending in 2015. That's $3.2 trillion. As a comparison, the entire expenditure of the federal government was $3.7 trillion in 1994. The vast majority of federal spending is going out the door without any congressional oversight through the annual appropriations process. Of the $3.2 trillion on autopilot, $2.6 trillion was spent through permanent appropriations, such as entitlement programs like Medicare and interest payments on the debt. $421 billion was spent through offsetting collections, such as fines and fees and court settlements. And $178 billion was spent through contract and borrowing authorities. With the debt reaching unstable levels, out of control, unsustainable spending needs to be reined in. Congress cannot continue to shrug its shoulders and watch our nation collapse under the weight of our own reckless spending. We need to take every opportunity to identify, consider, and mandate reforms to get our fiscal house in order. It is our duty to the American people to align federal spending with public priorities, as the Constitution intends for Congress to do. This Congress, I introduced H.R. 850, the Agency Accountability Act of 2018. Under H.R. 850, fines, fees, penalties, and settlements agencies collect must be deposited in the Treasury's general fund to await an act of Congress before it can be spent. In 2015, that would have been $421 billion. Programs that currently have dedicated funding streams through fines, fees, and penalties will still operate, but would need to have the budgets appropriated by Congress. A substantial portion of backdoor spending is in the form of improper payments. Since 2003, improper payments have totaled about $1.4 trillion. For fiscal year 2017, federal entities sent out about $141 billion in improper payments. Of the $141 billion, Medicare, Medicaid, and the Earned Income Tax Credit accounted for about 74%. We're fortunate today to have with us a panel that can help us better understand backdoor spending in federal agencies and the challenges it poses to Congress. I thank the witnesses for being here today. I now recognize the ranking member of the subcommittee, Mr. Raskin, for his opening statement.